Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. It is about 8:30 here where I am, and I just thought I'd do a sit down and chit chat sort of video about my story with anxiety and panic attacks. So I previously, quite a while ago actually, uploaded a video all about panic attacks to my YouTube channel, and that was very factual. It kind of went into like what to expect when you get them, what are the side effects, what causes them, and sort of looks at the psychology behind it all. But this sort of story is going to be like my experiences of panic attacks, so I hope this kind of makes you guys feel like you're not alone. A lot of people have panic attacks. A lot of people's experiences of panic attacks vary, they're different. Some people cope with them really well and some people don't. But I think we can all conclude that panic attacks and generalised anxiety is a horrible thing to have. No one deserves to have it, and actually all mental health issues and illnesses, they are just horrible to have and no one deserves to have them. So I just want to kind of share my story. Maybe you guys have had similar sort of experiences to me, or maybe some that you can share down below that can kind of bring insight onto what it's like to kind of have anxiety and to have panic attacks. So without further ado, I'm going to get into the video because otherwise I'll just be rambling about an introduction and I'll never get to the video. So let's get started. So for me, I think my anxiety well and truly started when I must have been around like 12 years old, and I think it started then, but I was never diagnosed then with anxiety. And we'd gone on holiday, I think somewhere in Spain, typical holiday destination, and we went away for 2 weeks and I was having a great time. I must have been 12 years old. I went with my family, I was having a really good time, and then I think towards the end of the holiday I started to get heat stroke. And I think some of the symptoms of heat stroke is obviously you get sunburn, you feel really nauseous, you get a bit tachycardic, etc. And I had no clue at the time it was heat stroke, and I just started sort of panicking and making it worse. And I remember kind of we were at the airport on our way home and I was a mess. And when we were at the airport, the flight attendant said, well, you can't get on the flight if she's feeling like this, she's not well enough, etc. I got seen by the airport doctor at the time, who basically said that I wasn't fit to fly. So we stayed in a hotel for one night, and then after that I sort of calmed down and I was fit to fly. So I got home and kind of got back to normality, and I was just not well. My heart would be palpitating, I would just be on edge all the time, I felt really weak, I felt like I couldn't walk, I was constantly stressed and anxious about it. So we went to the GP, and that's just kind of like the doctors, and I explained the symptoms, I explained what I was having, but I was in balls of tears. And obviously I went with my mum at the time, and they said, I think you should just go to A&E and they can kind of do the appropriate test of the heart to see if there is anything going on. So I went to A&E, I was still a wreck, I was still crying, etc. And they did tests on my heart, and they just found that there was a little bit of tachycardia, so it was beating faster than normal, but that was about it. Everything else was fine. And they said, come and see a cardiologist in a certain amount of weeks' time to get another checkup, just to make sure everything's well and fine. So after that, my acute anxiety and panic subsided. I was like, okay, I'm not dying, I'm here, I'm fine. And then a few weeks kind of after that, it was still sort of in the background, and I used to have these feelings, and this is going to sound really weird, I used to have these feelings where I felt like I couldn't breathe, and I'd have to take really deep breaths to kind of feel the air going into my lungs. And it's a very weird thing to describe, but I kind of felt like my chest was really tight all the time, and it was just kind of closing and I just couldn't get enough air in, and it would give me a lot of anxiety, and I'd think, oh my gosh, I can't breathe, etc. And I used to remember regularly checking with my mum. I was like, can you feel my pulse, you know, am I here? Like, obviously I was alive, but I just remember getting very anxious about things like that, and it would constantly be on my mind, and I'd have to stop and take deep breaths like throughout the day to make sure, like, okay, I am breathing properly. And that sort of subsided and disappeared, and that all kind of went away until I was in year 10. In year 10 was when I did my GCSEs, and at the beginning of year 10 we had exams. I think it must have been November time, and we had science and math exams, and I just had a panic attack at home at the beginning of year 10. I was like, I'm gonna fail my exams, I can't do this. I had a long chat with my mum about it. She tried to calm me down, talk me out of my crazy thoughts that I was gonna fail, and I just kind of took one day at a time. I managed to do really well in my first 2 A-levels, which then made me calm down and not have so much of anxiety around exams and around failing. I've always had this thing where I'm very hard on myself. I always think I'm going to fail at things even though I've never even tried them. But I mean, that's probably one of the main causes of why I get so anxious and why I'm so hard on myself and why I'm not always like 100% happy with myself. So then from year 10 through to year 13, I was fine. I had good times at school. I did okay in my GCSEs. I got through it, and then I got to year 13, and year 13 was the time where everyone was applying for universities, and the school I went to, they put a lot of pressure on you to constantly do well. They didn't really care about you unless you were going to Oxford or Cambridge or one of the really good universities, and they would kind of say, if you don't go to university, it's like you failed at life. And every kind of week in assembly they would hone this in and say, you know, you have failed if you don't study and if you don't do well in these tests. Most kids hear it and they move on and they're like, okay, like this is what they have to say in assembly. But it really hit home for me, and I was working and overworking to the point where I was having panic attacks during the time of exams on a daily basis. I couldn't retain information, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I was not functioning, I was crying all the time. My heart was constantly palpitating, I was shaking. I just kind of felt like everything was kind of closing in on me. And I felt like I couldn't do anything. I felt helpless. I just kind of felt like it was all too much. And however much I tried, I couldn't get away from this feeling. And I just didn't know how to get rid of the panic attacks, and everything felt like it was too much. So my mum phoned the GP, and they prescribed me a medication called propranolol, which is supposed to sort of calm you down and kind of make you feel a bit more here instead of here. It didn't really do much for me, but it was the best that they could give me at the time. I didn't want to take sleeping pills because I was having exams the next day, and I wanted to be on the ball. And that continued throughout my A-level exam experience. I kept saying I was going to fail. I didn't know what I was going to do when I failed. All I knew was that in my head I was going to fail. There was going to be no hope for me. I wasn't going to get into university, and everyone else was, and everyone at school like would kind of shun me for it. And it was just these idealizations in my head. It wasn't kind of someone directly telling me this. And I had for a good month and a bit just constant panic attacks. I wouldn't sleep, I barely eat. All I would do was work and panic, and it was really unhealthy. And then my exams finished, and I went on a trip to Australia. I was lucky enough to go away, and I was staying with my mum's old work boss at the time, and she lived in Melbourne. And throughout that time my anxiety was still in the background, but I wasn't having constant panic attacks. And then I was having a really good time. I came home and I got my A-level results back, and I did alright. I got into the uni of my choice, I got into nursing, and I was really happy. Honestly, I thought it was a miracle that I managed to get an A star in psychology. I was just like, this isn't happening. I was really happy, and I tried to block out my anxiety. And ever since then, it has been at bay. I would say it occasionally spikes when I'm in challenging situations where I self-doubt myself, and I still get anxiety now when anything kind of happens where there's a change in my life. I get anxiety. When it comes to exams, I get anxiety. When I'm stressed, work related, I get anxiety and I don't sleep. And that's okay to say. you know, people suffer with panic attacks, people suffer with anxiety, and I would say the main feeling for me is everything kind of feels like it's overwhelming, and it feels like I'm carrying too much and I just can't do it, it's too heavy, I can't make the balance, and I just kind of fall. But you can always get back up. I know it's really, really difficult, and I've had panic attacks and periods of severe anxiousness that have lasted me like a good month, and you can see the other side of it, even though it is horrible. It really is. And you just feel like at the time, you just feel very helpless. Sometimes you can try every mechanism or every tip and trick under the sun, but you can't control the way your body's making you feel, and unfortunately that causes a cycle, and that makes you more anxious, and then you don't sleep, and then you feel unwell, and then you just never sort of get out of that sort of tight cage of anxiety, and it is horrible. But I want to say that you can get through it, and it takes time. Don't think that in a day or two you're just going to get over it. For some people you might, but if that's not the case for you, don't be hard on yourself, don't stress on yourself. If you have to take a few days off for work or from school, or if you need to have therapy, if you need to talk to someone, if you need to take medication, anything that can help make it better for you, you have a right to explore those options. You have a right to feel the way you're feeling. And even if it's a small thing that's causing your anxiety, you still have a right to be anxious. You have a right to feel the way you're feeling. I know a lot of people try and say, oh well, bad things happen to everyone, this is life, get over it. It really isn't. Everyone has a right to express their feelings, to feel them, and to be able to talk to people about them in confidence, that the fact that they will get some help. So I hope my story with anxiety has kind of given you a little more of a personal insight into who I am and what I've been through with anxiety and with mental health. And actually, my story of anxiety is just that outer layer of my life and mental health problems. And you know, so many people go through mental health issues, whether it's anxiety, OCD, schizophrenia, or just depression, anything. And we're all sort of a mental health matters family, and I want to be able to share my experiences to help you guys, and to help you guys feel like if you've got any concerns or worries or any experiences that you want to share, that you want to get out into the open to our mental health matters family, that you guys can, because I want this to be a platform where we can openly talk about mental health and remove the stigmas around mental illness, because mental health does matter.
I didn't think we could fall in love, broken from the start, chained to our past.